The tech for this podcast was produced by Truth Digital. Truth Digital is the sister company to Cochrane & Co. We work in the same office, we drink the same coffee. We do websites, marketing, paid ads, social media, SEO, and all of the other things that will get you new business quickly and efficiently without the bullshit. Check us out, truthdigital.co.uk, or check us out on socials. All handles are Truth Digital. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you here again very soon.
Right. So, welcome, Luke, to the podcast. First of all, who is Floor Ninja?
Wow, Floor Ninja. It's been a bit of a journey, to be honest, Tom. So, started out many years ago, about 20 years ago now, as a 15-year-old lad, starting to go with my uncle, who was a carpet fitter. Yeah, just, you sort of run-of-the-mill basic carpet fitter, vinyl floor there. And yeah, I was at school. Not nice, I didn't really enjoy school too much, so any chance of earning money outside of school, I went with my uncle, just picking up remnants, offcuts, back and forth, dog's body to the van, T-boy, all of that. That was in and around like all school holidays, sometimes even take the odd day off if he had a big day on. But with that, I obviously gradually started picking bits and bobs up, started nailing a gripper down, doing a bit of this, doing a bit of that. I enjoyed it. I was always a bit of a hands-on lad at school. I liked PE, the technology lessons and all that sort of thing. And yeah, I left school at 16. And although working my uncle was great, he was paying me, like £10 a day at that point, which a 15-year-old, it wasn't so bad. See, when you leave school, everyone else is sort of getting these other jobs, and you're only on sort of £10-20 a day. It wasn't sort of really cutting it, so I went and got a proper job. I think at the sports shop first. After sort of one day, straight away, I knew I didn't like that. Beer at 8, go home at 6, have your lunch at this time. Yeah, that wasn't for me. But I stuck it out, obviously, at that time, because you just get to the end of the month and, I think at that point you get sort of like £700 a month. That's sort of big money as a young lad. But very, very quickly it sort of wore thin. And I ended up going back with my uncle literally about 3-4 months later. And he wanted me to help him, but again, he wanted to sort of pay me £20 a day. So I had to sort of suck it up for a while and just go with him on the basis I thought, if I can learn, then great. And I did do that. I started picking up things quite quickly. The problem with that then come that my uncle sort of didn't like, or didn't seem to like how quick I was progressing, because he just wanted sort of 20-year-old Luke picking up, bagging up rubbish behind him. And, he had a good gig, because as soon as he sort of dropped the scrap behind him, it vanished. I was there. It was tidy. I was always ahead of him. I was doing more and more gripping, underlaying. Yeah. He was loving life. His work day was so much easier, but for 20 quid. But I started sort of picking up more things until one day we were on a big carpet job, sort of got it all prepped, laid a load of carpets out, and I locked myself in a room, basically. I locked myself in a room, sort of anchored the carpet on behind the door and started fitting. And next minute, my sort of uncle's going mental, knocking at the door. Hey, open this bloody effing door now. I know, just ignoring it. He's kicked off. His gut, he was worried, like, if he cuts up the carpet short, that's going to cost me, blah, 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 which I fully understood. But, I was in there. So this sort of went on about 5 to 10 minutes. He's out there stressed as hell. Then he went silent out to the van. And eventually, sort of 20 minutes, half hour, however long it was later, I finished fitting the room, opened the door, went out and found him in the van, got a right old bollock in, until he went indoors, upstairs, into the room, and see that I fit the carpet,
Wow.
Obviously back then, this by this point, I'm 18 years old, say, so I'd been watching and learning. It wasn't like I went with him one day, watched him do something, and then when I'd done it, I'd been watching a long, long time before I'd done this. And yeah, it's sort of, he was pissed off, but he sort of couldn't deny that when he was looking around the room, it was fitted to, his standard. I'm not going to lie and say, obviously, at 18, I was fitting carpets to the standard I fit them now. But, at that point, it was fitted to his standard and he got paid. So then I started obviously installing more. He started letting me install more. Didn't want to pay me the money that I wanted.
No.
So as a result of this, for ages I kept saying to him, he only relied on subcontracting work to shops. He never really done any advertising. He'd pick up the odd job by speaking to a customer from the shop we used to work to, but he didn't actively promote his own business. So for ages I was like, Kev, do this. Like, put an advert in the local paper 20 years ago. That was the thing back then, We forget about it now, but I just kept saying, do this. I said, give me the van and the tools. You go out, seeing customers getting the work. It was mainly carpet and vinyl work, stuff that one man could struggle on with on his own. And he just wouldn't listen. He was just too sort of happy doing these 3-4 days a week, having, like I said, a £20 labourer that was now sort of basically doing all this other work for him. He just would never take it on board. So, like I said, I was 18 at this point. In my area where I live, Newbury, Berkshire, at that time we had some really bad flooding.
Okay.
Very bad. So at that point, that the roads, were like a river in a few areas. So thousands and thousands of houses got flooded out. Yeah. Obviously, then all this insurance work came around. At that point, I decided, I've got to go on my own. Found a company that would give me van finance somehow, because again, I was a young lad getting paid cash. I didn't really have a credit rating, but I found a van company that were happy to charge me about £18,000 for a £9,000 van over finance. It just literally a Citroen Relay box of a van, but beggars can't be choosers. So at 18, I signed myself into this stupid finance agreement, but it got me a big enough van. And a bit of bubble writing on the side at the time, sort of Luke Johnson, carpets, wood, vinyl. But and away I went, never sort of thinking much more. I'm just installer, helped out local shops. And then I started to implement everything that I said to my uncle that he should do. A little advert in the paper, a little advert on Yellow Pages. At the time, I was helped along because there was so much demand for work because of all these flooding. I guess I'd say probably around 5,000 houses that were, the whole ground floor was flooded. So you can imagine the amount of work that was created. Yeah. And off the back of that, my little advert being in paper, people were calling me. They call up. And it's quite funny because people, see Luke Johnson in the paper, ring up, and they expect to get like a 40-year-old man on the end of the phone. And obviously at that time, I was only an 18-year-old lad, So, they call, have arrange an appointment, and then I'd sort of go round to a customer's house in an evening. There's this 18-year-old lad, baby face, tattoos at that point, and they open the door and like, sorry, yeah, can we help you? I'm like, I'm Luke, the floor there. Sort of look at me a bit like, oh my God, really? But, I'd go and measure up. And at that point, what I had to do, I was doing a lot of fit-only work where people got the materials themselves, and I'd be literally going in and charging £20 to fit a bedroom just because it got my foot in the door. Because although people are dubious, when you say to them that, I'm only going to charge you £20 when maybe they've been told £100 by someone else, they soon change their minds. I get in, fit carpet, and after me from day one. It's a regular thing now in the industry, but even 10 years ago, 5 years ago, it wasn't so much. But even from day one, because I wanted to make an impression, I've hoovered my carpets from day one. If I fit a carpet in your house, I hoover it because only then once I've hoovered it can I tell if there's any little snags around the edge and a little wispy bits that need cutting off. You know, whereas a lot of installs used to sort of fit the carpet, leave a big bag of cuttings, all the fluff. And again, and also I trim the door.
I was going to say, and leave the saw hanging there, like on the side of the bedroom, just like, yeah, that used to be a common. Picture that, like just bits of carpet, the roll outside the door, and the door just took off its hinges and said, "Right, see you later, bye."
Yeah, no, exactly. That's a run of the mill thing, and even with my uncle, you know, he done that at first until I started hoovering because I had the time I used to hoover behind him, and straight away, even then used to see the feedback. The feedback used to go back to the shop that we worked for, and they're like, "Oh yeah, Kevin and his labour was brilliant. I can't believe they hoovered up behind him. Like, no one's ever done that." But yeah, so I've always done that from a young age, and again, ease the doors, quickly take the door off, cut it, put it back on. So that helped me start building my reputation. I had to go through a good couple of years of working for little money, but with that, it obviously snowballed, and my reputation in it's only a small town where I live, but my reputation grew as sort of, Luke comes in, everything we done, no doors left off, it's all tidy, and I was quite lucky, but again, it all sort of worked in my favour because at that time there was such a demand of work from this plumbing.
Yeah.
So it coincidence or whatever, but it all worked out quite well. From that, by 22, by the age of 22, I'd taken on my cousin, who he was the next labourer that my uncle had after I'd sort of threw the nest, and we'd bump into each other out in town, and he'd like, how's working? I said, yeah, give it a few more months, and I'll have you on board. Like, I'll get you on board. And he didn't believe it, and then I ended up taking him on. Used to help out another shop on the odd days, and they went bust. But their senior fitter also ended up having him. So I was 22 years old, ended up in 3 vans and 2 other guys. And at that point, obviously, I was really pushing. Well, I was a mobile showroom setup, so you had a small van stacked to the roof with samples. Again, people love that back then. Mobile showroom, turns up on your drive, dig free, and it worked brilliant. Again, kept growing until another few years later, I went retail.
Right.
And that was Luke Johnson Flooring. So got a little unit, a little warehouse set up, and just decided, I was going to give it a go, the retail. At first, when I was 18 years old, when I put bubble wire on the side of the van, I didn't expect that. It was a pipe dream, but it wasn't. At that age, you just think, nah, it won't happen. Yeah. But we got to that point, had a big showroom opening, and the whole town sort of really supported me and created a fantastic business. All along with this, again, my uncle was just a carpet and sheet vinyl fitter.
Yeah.
From a young age, I started going on other little courses, like manufacturer courses. Started learning LVT, then started dealing with Carndine. Obviously, when I first opened, went on the Carndine courses. I've always done mainly manufacturer courses. To be honest, not so much like the training centres that are around now. Because whether I didn't know about them at the time back in the day or whatever, but it was mainly manufacturer courses, and then a lot of like self-learning on site. My mindset is once I've learned something, I then want to perfect it. Make it as quick as possible, but still perfect. So I'm always just developing quicker, faster ways to do things, but keeping the quality high. So I've always been into self-development and learning new stuff. And with that, in the showroom, obviously got the Carndine stands, Antico stands, Moduleo. Things just kept growing and growing and growing. Yeah. Problem with that was that I couldn't get the installers.
Okay.
So at one point, I had a showroom, and then my customers would come in and book quotes, and I'd end up having sort of 40 quotes to do in a week.
Yeah.
As you probably know yourself, what one quote can be a little box room, or a quote can be a mansion.
Absolutely.
So when you're doing sort of 40 quotes, you're out on the road, the working hours of the week. Then you get back in the evening, just sat doing paperwork. Meanwhile, someone's got to fit all of this flooring. So, I did have 6 installers at the time. One being my cousin that had been working with me, who's a fantastic installer. But then we had a lot of other sort of younger fitters that just didn't have the right mindset. Great lads. They were great lads, and could do good work, but they just made a choice sometimes in their working day, as I'm sure you found in the past, that they just didn't want to do. That it was more like, that'll be okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
Just hash that in. That'll be okay. That's going to be on. Sideboard goes over that. Customer won't see that. But previous customers that had used me in the past, obviously, I'd installed my eye for detail in them, so they knew what they were looking at. So it started opening a bit of a can of worms, and the more complex Carndine and Antico jobs we started getting, because of obviously all the design work that's possible with them. Again, the lads had a bit of a threshold. They all sort of could do this, and that was their threshold. They couldn't do the border work, or they couldn't do the fancy design. So when you're selling a lot of like fancy work and you haven't got the fitters, it's hard to complete. So yeah, it's become very frustrating for me. It's 24/7 having this business. I was constantly firefighting, and yeah, it aged me. From 25 to 30, I started going grey at like 26. It aged me, the stress of it. And people, from an outside, people were going, "Oh, Corey, must be doing well. Must be doing well." Because it looks great. All 5 vans, like 10 staff or 9, 10 staff. And yeah, I had a nice life, but I bloody worked hard for it. Like, and I wasn't, it's like people thought I had millions in the bank. I was like, no, definitely not. Definitely not. Anything I've got, any nice holidays or car I might have, I'm working like double hard for that. People don't see that. You just stroll around. It's like, but yeah, I was just thinking, what? At one point, I got to the point my company cost £30,000 a month break even, and I'm still, still a small business. So I'm like only up to sort of 10 staff. To keep turn all the lights on, pay all the bills, and to pay my basic wage that I paid myself. It was £30,000 a month, and some of these people are, when you break it down to 4 working weeks of 5-day weeks on average, I know, which is when we was installing, which creates the earning of money. That's 20 days a month, So your daily sort of income, yeah. I'm sure I don't need to tell you this, but for anyone that's got a business, it's a lot.
They're very unique in any person.
And then when you add into the mix of things like, in the flooring trade, every team is a team of 2, carpet jobs, you need 2 men. But any aspects of flooring, really, you need to be a 2-man team, because it's a hard trade. So, I send out a senior fitter or an apprentice on the vans, then they go to jobs, and then I come and give a worksheet. That's all the stuff you need, guys, in the warehouse. Help yourself. Take a bit extra, an extra bag of screed if you want, or extra couple of bags. You're working 20 minutes away, so take extra. So it's fine. They still go to site.
But
Yeah, stuff like that. Or like the next morning we're in there, they were in early, they emptied the van from the day before. And then it's like, right, you're off to this job. Oh, no, mate. Sorry, we've got to go back to that job 20 minutes away. Why? Oh, because we didn't have the gold single bar that was on the worksheet that we should have taken. So it was, right. So, okay, so now we've got 2 men in a van doing an hour and a half round trip by the time you got there, doing something that was going to take 2 minutes yesterday, while you're at the end of the job. And for things, like, I don't have a go at this. Like, I'm not having a go. I'm just sort of saying, trying to get you to understand the knock-on effect. No, there's a compound effect in life, and you don't understand it. Now you guys are going to be 2 hours late to this job today. You're going back there, extra fuel, time. This is a business, not a charity.
And you've got to ring the client that went to go to, say the boys are running late, and they're disappointed because they were waiting in and they've cleared the room, and yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And people just don't sort of realise, like say, the knock-on effect. They're just going, oh, it's just a door bar. You know what? It is just a door bar. Look what the knock-on effect is. But this is happening a lot. When I had my shop, I think not so much anymore. I do a lot of wood flooring, but when I had my shop, we woodpecker had an amazing big display stand, and done tons of engineered wood flooring. So on them jobs, I'll book it, and that's a 3-day job. Whenever I quit the job, I'm not was one of these guys that would go to a job and book it in 3 days when it's a 4-day job. I used to give anyone that done work for me, I'll go to the job and I would quote the time on what it would take me to do on my own. Yeah, on my own. So then I'd send a 2-man team. So if it's have a big wood job every 3 days, they'd be on that. At the end of the 3 day, no one was checking. It would all turn up and go, obviously not going to get funds there, are you? Looking at it, no. Why are you jigsawing and everything? That big £1,000 chop saw that makes work really easy that you bought for us. So it broke about 3 months ago. But basically, no one wants to admit who broke it. So that's why it's not being brought to light, because it's like, it's like, oh my God. So you've got a nice expensive tool that makes just like a really quick job. And instead of just saying that, the guards broke on it, it could be an accident. So it doesn't matter. Things happen. They're consumables. But it's just stuff like that, Tommy. This got so frustrating. And you're like, what more can you do, these guys? It wasn't all of them. It wasn't. Yeah, just at that point, I was just like, I had to make a decision. And the showroom was getting busy. Saturday mornings, we'd have tons of customers in.
Yeah.
Wanted to book in jobs. And I sort of started seeing that, customers are coming in on a Saturday. They get added onto a list for me to contact and see. But when the list is like 20 people long, when I get obviously 5 minutes to do that, I start at number 1, 2. So people started getting a bit pissed off because went into Root Johnson Flooring the other day and didn't get back to me. I haven't heard anything yet. This is like a couple of days later, but they don't realise. So I could just sort of see that it was getting too big. The demand was far too big. Didn't have the fit. I didn't have the installers. I was constantly looking on installers. I strolled back through my old business page, Facebook page over there, and see like how many times I was putting on there looking for fitters. And I did it. I did have quite a few contractors that come on board, and the usual thing when you speak to them, like, what do you do? Yeah, fit all floors. Yeah, fit everything, make mint. And then they come to a job, do a job, and it's not mint.
No.
And that becomes a very awkward conversation then, because, I was always one of those people that, I'd never sort of hash their work, but I would say to them, I'm not happy with that because of this. And let me just quickly show you what I mean, So I wouldn't just say, oh, look, I'm not happy. I'd show them why and show them how I wanted it done. So, yeah, I sort of struggled getting contractors because people are like, oh, you're just too anal. And that's the right word, but you're too particular. I'm like, yeah, okay, maybe I am, but that's what's created my reputation. So, yeah.
So what happened to the shop in the end?
I just made a choice in 2019 to shut it down, but close it down. Nothing bad from a business point of view happened. It was all done correctly. I got to a point with the order book where I closed it.
Yeah.
And then knew that I had sort of 2 months left of the shop being open, so I could fulfill all them orders. And yeah, that was it basically. You know, the only sort of bad things come out of it at the end was just um, a month's unpaid business rates to the council. But whatever, you know, no one, customers, you need them, all the staff, you know, were sort of helped move on. You know, no one was left high and dry. If anything, it was me that sort of, after spending all them years setting it all up and everything, you know, I sort of,
More heartbreaking for you.
yeah, you know, I'll say there's no bankruptcy or anything like that around it. I've done it all properly and I survived through it. But the money, watching the money dwindle down to wind the company up was quite annoying. You know, there wasn't tons in there, but you know, when you sort of see a few tens of thousands dwindle down just in a wind up process to do it properly, when there's so people out there that just sort of take the money and, you know, sod everyone else. My ethics are not like that. I couldn't do that. So,
No.
but after that, the good thing about that is that obviously I'd sort of stripped it back. So I was back to being an 18-year-old boy again with a van and a vat. And that's when I created I Build and Renovations. So I was slightly diversified at this point because the last few years of having Luke Johnson flooring, I had started doing renovation works on the side just because customers asked me, you know, I was so meticulous with the flooring work. Like, you know, to do this, to do that. And basically I started doing bits and bobs on the side, renovation works. And that had started sort of growing in the background as well because I was taking my time, doing a good job, and customers were happy. So they tell someone else. And yeah, spending 15 years on Luke Johnson flooring, building a brand and name, and having to shut it down because, you know, I couldn't get the staff or the quality of installers I needed. It was quite sad. A bit different if, you know, if no one was coming in the shop and we were terrible at what we did, then you can swallow that. You can be like, do you know what? Actually, I tried saying it didn't work. You know, we didn't have the demand, we didn't have the customer, but we did. So at the time, I didn't really realise, but over the last few years, I've sort of understood that, you know, that obviously sort of upset me quite a lot inside because I grafted so hard. You know, I tried to, you know, the guys look after everyone, pay them as well as I could. You know, I was never making thousands and thousands of pounds and paying someone peanuts. You know, I always said to them, if you make me £1 million, you know, you will feel the knock-on effect of that. You will benefit as well. So, you know, it's just a bit gutting, and I sort of fell out of love with the industry at that point.
Yeah.
So, hence where the I Build and Renovations come from. I also learned from my business being my name, Luke Johnson Flooring, that when it comes to closing down, I couldn't even sell on the database. You know, Luke Johnson Flooring is nothing without Luke Johnson.
Right. Yeah.
You know, Dave down the pub can't be Luke Johnson Flooring.
No.
So, you know, what I did look into, obviously, trying to just salvage something, you know, get 10, 15,000 pounds for the database and the brands, but I couldn't because it was me. So, yeah, when starting another business, obviously, I was very reluctant to obviously use my name again. I wanted it to be a
Company. Yeah.
a company name. So, you know, you build a good enough brand, you can sell it on. You know, Tom can be it, John can be it. It doesn't matter. So, yeah. So I come up with I Build and Renovations, and my aim was obviously to take on bigger work. Still always doing the flooring work, but yeah, just, you know, with extra stuff now. So yeah, and that's overall, I Build the last 3 years has actually been very good for a few reasons. That it's been obviously I've been in control of it all. So, you know, I've not been relying on other people.
No.
I've been going to work every day, and that's been much better. Being back in that position, you know, again, a lot more personal for my customers. I am lucky that I've still kept the same customer base. So I tend to sort of do mid to high end work, from my shop, and I'm lucky that I've still kept my same customer base. You know, I've still got a lot of my accounts, so I can still offer all the same thing that I did before, but I'm just out of van now, and obviously can't do as many jobs. But yeah, that with the renovation side, I've been doing obviously, you know, building projects as well. So from extensions to remodeling. But as you probably know, you know, the building trade at the moment it's a hard place to make money. So yeah, materials, well, even in flooring, as we know, everything is so hard to make money. Um, and as I started growing with the renovation side of things, I very quickly found myself going back down the same road again. But you know, employed a couple of guys, getting subcontractors working on the jobs, and very quickly found myself falling into a bit of Luke Johnson flooring again, where you know, getting this work, but guys are letting me down, other subcontractors.
Yeah.
And yeah, you know, the money soon gets out of way. So it's like a lot of effort, but not a lot of reward. So yeah, I sort of again 6 months ago I got rid of the employees and literally for the first time ever stripped it back to just being me. Like since I was 18-year-old lad and I took on my first apprentice or my labourer. I'm 35 now. Only recently has it ever been that I wake up in the morning now and all I have to think about paying is my daily wage. You know what I mean? There's always been another wage or someone else's mortgage or rent to pay every single week up until I had the business. And like I said, there's multiple people's wages, and that's been a huge weight off my shoulder. Which
You got more money in your pocket as well.
well, yeah, I know. Yeah, we obviously briefly spoke earlier about and you had more guys, but it's strange. You know, I've got all the knowledge. Yeah, you know, I've got all my lessons now. I've learned the hard way, unfortunately, with a lot of things in life. I've made the mistakes. I've learned the hard way, but now, going back to just literally being me. Yeah, of course, I still work with my cousin who's an installer. He's his own man. We still team up. I've got other good friends that I team up and work alongside, but I don't have to pay anyone else's wage or mortgage anymore apart from my own, which is nice. That's a good feeling.
So why Floor Ninja? Where's that came from?
Sorry, bit of background there, maybe a bit too much.
Love the story. Absolutely, like 90% of the stuff you said, slightly different environment, slightly different location, but all of those pains that you've identified there, I've lived, breathed. I've been the person like when my hand over my face, thinking, why did you not fit that door bar? You know, why did you leave the job at 5 to 4 when you could have just stayed till 4:15? You know, everyone thinking you're making millions, and you know, you some months cash flow, you're struggling to meet payday. Some months you think you're a millionaire, but you're actually not. All of those things, you know, man in a van, bigger shop, then another one. Yeah, the whole thing is like, you may as well have read out my CV.
No, but if you're in the industry, I know many other people that are in the situation now. You know, with shops and talk to them on social media, in person, and yeah, you know, that I'm sure people listening to this will be able to relate to this easily, especially small business owners. You know, that family-owned shops and the smaller setups, where when you've got every person in your business is a key cog. It's companies that have got 50 to 100 people, that everyone's overlapping. If someone doesn't come in that day, you sort of don't really miss them. But when we're like small businesses like ourselves, when that one cog's not there, the chain stops moving, isn't it? It's just so it's yeah. I'm sure there's a lot that can relate to that. But in answer to your question, Floor Ninja is actually quite a newish thing over the last few months. It's actually started from TikTok. You know, for when TikTok first came out, I, you know, you see it everywhere, and like we all do, we download these apps, see what it's all about. I think must have been the lockdown pandemic when it went crazy.
That's right.
And I downloaded it and I was like, what the, I couldn't get my head around it. I'm quite tech savvy, but I was like, what bloody hell? I couldn't work it out. And it wasn't of real interest to me at that time. So that got shelved. And then I sort of, it's kept growing and growing and growing, as we know. And then earlier this year, I sort of, let's take a look at that again, because it's social media, no matter how important social media is for businesses today. But went back on there, and first I had my little I build renovations page, and sort of again wasn't too up with making these videos and how you do it, so left it. And then again, I've gone on and I created a new account for just purely for flooring. I'm like, flooring, you've been in flooring 20 years. Yeah. Like this is my first craft, my main skill set. So I do on there. I love helping people and putting stuff out there to help others make money or do a better job, whatever it is. And obviously, when I went on there, I just come up with the handle, Floor Ninja. That was my TikTok handle. So that's where it's coming from. And at first, obviously, I just put my account out there, putting tips and tricks and flooring and renovation related. So Floor Ninja is basically coming from being my handle on TikTok, my name, my username, which I created. I can't really remember how I thought of it. I just was sitting there thinking of what's a cool name. And that come up there. So over the last few months, I've put a bit with social media. 1 minute I'm sort of fully on it, then the next minute I might post anything for a few weeks, because my life's not governed by social media. But sometimes we're at work, you're just working away, and like the job's not really right. You can't really get some good footage or whatever. So I'm a bit sporadic with that. But videos I put out there, some of our good views, and I get a lot of people sort of messaging me, whether it be Instagram or whatever, asking for tips, advice, and so on.
How many followers have you got now on TikTok?
Only 7,000. So it's not not a lot. But I say I'm so good to know it. No, still, my Instagram's only 3,000, just under. But again, I'm very sporadic with it. TikTok the main platform at the minute if I'm going to post anything. So that will change going forward. But from there, the Floor Ninja brand, it's quite a cool brand. I think a bit different. So that's where the Floor Ninja's gone from. Being away the last 2 weeks, I've sort of been on holiday and had a lot of time to think, and I've sort of I am going to progress with the Floor Ninja brand.
Yeah.
Because I think that with basically I've done flooring for 20 years. The renovation side I love, but for me as a businessman, flooring was what I could make money with, basically.
Yeah. So how does 2023 look in your view? What have you got planned for next year? What's on the goals list?
So with that in a minute, in the background, I'm just working on, I've got put a bit of a plan together with, and the Floor Ninja will go forward. So currently my business is I Build and Renovations Limited. I will be changing the name on company's house. So the same company, but we'll just be changing name to Floor Ninja. And I'll be running with that. I feel like I sort of fell back in love with the trade now, which the whole New Johnson flooring experience, I definitely fell out of love with it. And ultimately with the flooring, I love helping others. I've done the brief 4 months in training last year, helping out, and really enjoyed that. So, again, multiple people message me, text, on all the platforms, asking for tips, and I love helping. So, I'll focus back to the flooring. The Floor Ninja will, I'll be doing the same thing as what I do now with my local customers, supplying installation of all types of flooring. thinking about setting up obviously a little mini appointment own showroom for that, because that really does help, having a little showroom. At the minute, I have to rely on taking sample books or swatches. So I'm going to do that on that side. And it will be another aspect of Floor Ninja, which will be the academy. So this is not public yet. Anyone listening to this, and by the time this goes out, it might be a bit more public, but I am going to look to do some sort of training. I'm not going to be setting up like my own training center and doing, because it's not something I want to do full time. I don't want all my eggs in one basket, but I am going to be offering some training courses at various locations for people, because I have a lot of young lads that message me saying like, hey, can you do training or whatever? And I met some lads when I did do the training briefly at Carndy, and I enjoyed it, Tom. I really did. I made had Paddy on the other week. Paddy's a great guy, and he's smashing it. And I'm very similar to Paddy. I genuinely want to help others and do a better job. And I'm not a bad installer, so I have got things to offer, and yeah. So it's 2023 is looking exciting. I'm excited. I'm back in love with the trade, and want to watch out. The Floor Ninja is going to grow.
Absolutely. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into a bit of a quick fire. Thank you so much for sharing that story. Best story there, because it just so many things clicked. I could have every element. Brilliant that. But as we always do, we have a bit of a fun quick fire round. Just for my entertainment and yours and the listeners. So if you won 10 million quid tonight on the lottery, what would be the first 5 things you would buy?
First 5 things. Obviously, a very big house somewhere with a massive workshop, because I like doing multiple things and tinkering around with stuff. So a very big house. Obviously, a car. You can ask me which one. I don't really know what car. Maybe a GT4 RS. But yeah, maybe a couple of cars actually. Maybe right. I do a lot of nice things. But ultimately, if I had a lot of money, I would be investing it in some sort of way of helping people. It would be helping others of some sort of business setup. But I don't know exactly what bit. If I had enough money that I could just spend time helping other people, whether it be installers on site, develop, or businesses. Although I don't have a multi-million-pound successful flooring business, I have learned a lot of things that now I tell other people, and it stops them going down that same road. So I can help people. But yeah, no, that's from this. I'll probably just enjoy being comfortable money-wise, and just help as many people as I could.
And in your big, massive house that you bought, what flooring would you buy? What would be your dream floor? Upstairs, downstairs?
Well, currently at home I'm sat here, and I've got project floors, herringbone, French oak all downstairs, and cool carpet all the way through upstairs. So I'm pretty happy with that. To be honest, yeah, it probably maybe the same, yeah. Or
Class. And the old chestnut, Five Guys or Domino's, and why?
definitely Five Guys, because although it's a rip-off of burger and chips, Domino's, I don't know what they put on it, but the next day you know about it. So, I'll just Domino's pizzas. Nah, I just don't like them.
I was thinking about this because Peter from KHR also said about Domino's that I think they might put something in them to make you eat more or not, because he was like, yeah, you have to finish the whole pizza. And I'm thinking, I thought that was just me. I thought I'm just a greedy person. And I'm sure there's some flavouring that's like, gets your taste buds going, I've got to finish this. And then once you buy more at the same price, maybe just the greedy ones of us, but you don't know. But
Yeah, definitely can agree with that. So,
Class. And then the last question is mash, roasties, or chips?
roast.
Oh,
Roast dinner is my favourite dinner. So roast potatoes, 100%.
brilliant. That's class, Luke. Right. Where can everyone find Floor Ninja if anyone wants to follow you?
So yeah, obviously you can find me on TikTok, which is Floor Ninja. My Instagram and Facebook. Currently, obviously transitioning over. Finding it hard to change the name completely on Facebook at the minute. So a lot of it is Floor Ninja / I Build Innovations, purely because of the fact, obviously, I am in a transition period, and just sort of trying to get awareness out there. People are seeing the transition. So you'll see some of my logos have the Floor Ninja and I Build at the minute.
Yeah.
So yeah, Facebook, Instagram, a website will be coming, but that's not yet. But yeah, social media basically. Yeah, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok.
Class. Brilliant, Luke. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your story. Been absolutely brilliant.
No worries. It's been an absolute pleasure, Tom.
The sponsor for this show is us. Is Cockrell & Co. What do Cockrell & Co do? Well, we help flooring shops, retailers, contractors, wholesalers, and anyone connected to the flooring industry spend more time doing productive things, putting systems and processes in place, making more bottom line profit, and running their business much more efficiently than they ever thought was possible. We run training courses, we have a community of nearly 100 people, and this podcast too. So if you want to know more about what we do, the best place to find us is either on socials, Cockrell & Co, or the website, which is cockrellandco.co.uk. We'd love to speak to you about how your business is going, what your plans are, and how you would love to grow and mature that over time. There is no cost to have a conversation with us on Zoom or on the telephone. We now have a fantastic senior leadership team who can help you with 99.9% problems, and if we can't help you, we will find someone that can. So no matter what flooring business you've got, what help you would need, you just need to ask. That is all. So without the corporate waffle, without the bloke in the shiny suit, but someone that wants to make more money and spend time doing things that you love, we would love to hear from you. Again, visit cockrellandco.co.uk and send us a message, or find us on LinkedIn, TikTok, Facebook and Instagram.